Becky, thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right, let's get started. I'm Frances.
I'm Zeb Knudsen.
Ashley Lavonne.
I'm Leah Ring.
All right, we have some notes to help us along here.
Exactly. Wherever you are.
We were going to start just kind of with talking about the beginning of our careers. Alicia's here, who I worked for 20 years ago in her family's furniture showroom. I had a lot of jobs, actually. And I remember I was given a piece of advice by Jamie Rosenthal, who owns Lost and Found, which, if any of you are not familiar with the fantastic store in Hollywood, and I was sort of bemoaning all of my friends from school having success and doing things. And she was like, maybe you're just going to collect like a little bit from a lot of different places, and at some point it's going to all kind of come into focus. So that was sort of how the path went. And then I ended up working at Commune, and they were the best. And some of my coworkers from there are here today. And I kind of always say that I would have happily worked there forever if I didn't know that I wanted my own business, which I kind of knew I wanted my own business before I knew what it would be. So I sort of always had that in my mind, but they were amazing mentors. So as much as I know these guys will say nice things about me today, I want to say like I had really wonderful people I worked for. And like true story, driving here in the car, I get a text from Pam Shamshiri being like, hey, I just met with these people. I don't know if the job's for me, but maybe you would like it. And I was like, I am on my way to talk about mentorship, and like this is the text that came in on the way. So I've been really lucky, and here we are.
I started at Reath Design in 2013, and I didn't have any prior experience. And
what was your first job working for me?
My first job was Frances's house sitter, dog sitter, and we met at a Friendsgiving. I was pretty new to LA still, and it was one of the more fortunate dinners I've been to in my life because it put me in her sphere. And the next day Lola needed somebody to spend the weekend with her, and I was like, I'll do it. And then I think like maybe 2 years later, you had an ad on Instagram that you needed some help around the office. I said, I'll do it. And I didn't have any prior experience, and I remember one of the first weeks I was contemplating going to like the UCLA extension program, and one of the first weeks I was working for you, we drove to an Ojai site visit, and it was a long car ride, and we were just talking about like what are my options and what I could pursue or do to get more information, and you gave me great advice, and you're like, you don't need to spend money on go to school, you just need to get hands-on experience and just like learn and absorb. And Reath has a brilliant reference library, so many great books, and Frances was like, take them home and read them. And like, I did all the scans for years in the office as we'd like start new projects. And so that was such an education, and I learned by watching and then doing. And so that was the education that I received in my introduction into this career. And I love it. It's great.
I started in 2020. We were talking about this before, but Frances, I had been working elsewhere, but it was March 2020 where we started the conversation. Yeah. And then the following week, everything shut down. But then I think we were both sort of nervous of like, what do we do? But still, you needed the help, and I still wanted to work with you. And we were both just like, if you're interested, I'm interested. And ended up just having a great conversation. And yeah, and I think I was there for about 4 years in whole. And I think this will be like a theme that comes up throughout the conversation, but just how collaborative like that environment was. And it's so nice to be able to work with your boss and like feel as though they are taking in your suggestions and even just kind of pushing back, or I don't know, it's a great experience.
Yeah, we'll all talk about how great Frances is. I had a very beautiful kismet experience getting my job at Reath. I had worked for a few firms, and I was working at a furniture company at the time and was really not happy. And I happened to live like basically across the street from the Reath office. And I walked there on a Saturday. Like I'd gotten back from a New York design week and I was like, I need to get a new job. I walked across on a Saturday, closed, peeked in the window like a nosy person. And I was like, oh, this is a residential design firm. And I looked up and the portfolio was amazing. And I emailed Frances and was like, if you need part-time help, freelance, like literally anything, like I'll work for you. And she emailed me on Monday and she's like, that's so crazy. Like, I actually need a senior designer. I've been too busy to post the job. Like, can you come in this week? Like, sure. I mean, it was just like, it was a gift from the universe. It totally changed my life. I was there for about 3 years and I'm forever grateful for that experience.
Yeah, I mean, hiring is hard, as I'm sure all of you know. So it's really lucky when you have great people, which the longer you go, the more you sort of figure out who the right fit is and how it works. And I have fantastic people who are here today also now. Yeah, what's next? When did you know it was the right moment to go out on your own?
Well, I feel like I was terrified to do it for so long because I was like, no, there's more I need to learn. I have to stick around a bit longer. And I was there for 7 years in total. And it was right before the pandemic. I think like maybe the year prior, we'd had a conversation during my review that I was like, I think I might be ready, but I'm not sure. And you were like, let's just keep it like as an open conversation about when like the time feels right. And as the pandemic hit, you know, I was absolutely terrified to leave. And but I knew that I was like, just because there were so many unknowns, I knew that I could do it if I just had like the right job or opportunity to latch on to. And I have a design partner who also was like looking to.
Who also worked at Reath.
Who also worked at Reath. It was just about finding like that right project to like kick us out the door. And Frances referred us that first job that was a great project. And it was like the thing that was like, all right, this gives me the space and the feeling confident that like I am gonna go out there and like not like run out of money and be able to like afford a life. And so that was again you that helped us make that possible. But it was for me just like I knew for a long time I just had more to learn. And once that 7 years went by, I was finally there, and it just took time to bake.
I think I'm remembering. I feel like my last year was sort of like half in, half out, but was able, I feel like, to balance like the two different lives. And I think similarly, like knowing that project that you're working on is like, okay, this is gonna be sustainable. And it's not just like, you know, someone's bedroom, but like a larger project that can, you know, you can give yourself a little bit of a runway. And then too, I think we had talked about this before of just like, also how do you leave a firm because you don't, like you have such a great relationship and you don't want to burn that bridge. And so I think us also trying to find like what's the balance of like, okay, we figure out millwork, all the tile, all the major like pieces, and you guys can find the lamps and pillows and things, but also wanting to make sure that, you know, as I leave or anyone leaves, that it's not just like.
And this is something that's probably really helpful to hear about for the designers with firms is like, we've tried to figure out a thing in our firm where there is an off ramp where people can finish projects they're working on while they're starting to work on other things on their own, because it's terrifying to leave on your own. But it's also terrifying as a designer to think someone's just gonna be like, bye, and the project, and you're like, wait, what's happening? And look, sometimes it works better than other times. And I remember having a conversation with, I think, either our bookkeeper or a lawyer or someone who's like, no, you need to stop their insurance. Like, they're going to be grown-ups. They're starting their own firm. Like, it doesn't have to be so comfortable. And like, there are pros and cons, right? Like, there were times I was telling Ashley that we were doing that at the same time that someone else who had been at a firm for the long time, who was starting his own thing, was leaving. And I was like, I still want to offer this for these people, but like, I was like, oh, it is like, kind of takes down the energy in the office when you know two people are leaving. So I think it's like one of those things where if you're just like very communicative and you're having conversations with like, hey, I might want to start my own business in a year. I don't know. Let's talk about it. Like, figure out. I think, I don't know, be a kind person to the people that work for you, and they will then hopefully also have that same kind of level of communication back.
Yeah, I think there was a level of transparency. I actually started Another Human as a furniture design studio when I was still working for Frances. I got an opportunity to show my first furniture collection at New York Design Week, and she graciously let me take off the week, and I flew to New York. So I think it's like that was always like bubbling in the background. But I will say, having worked for several firms, I wouldn't have been ready to start my own business had I not worked for Reath. Like, I think, not to name names, but like, you know, some principals are a little more like aloof or like in and out or whatever. And like, working for Frances was such an education in how to run a business. And I liked, when I was there, it was Frances and 4 designers. And that seems like, oh, that's a scale. I mean, I'm not there yet, but like, that was a scale that felt like approachable to me. And maybe I could model that after, but also, working for a principal that's so deeply involved in every aspect of the business, like beyond the creative vision, like the bookkeeping, the marketing, the photo, I just saw what it took to run a business.
It's helpful to have a one-room office and someone who's just like, guys, what do we do? Like, anyone ideas?
But it was really cool. Like, truly, like, it was such an education. And it got to a point where, like Frances, I always knew I wanted to have my own business. And I had started my studio and was getting some traction. And I just got an opportunity. And it would have sort of allowed me to, like, ease into my own thing. And we had a conversation. And you're like, yeah, I would do that if I were you. I totally get it. And luckily, Frances is still a mentor, and I still call her with questions.
All right, what do we got next here? Oh, this is a good question. We took some questions in advance from people to see what are some things to budget for when you're starting on your own, or must-haves in terms of setting up for success. My personal answer for this is photography. Like, just generally, like, invest in photography as much as you can.
Yeah, and it can be painful when you're starting out and like your cash flow is not great, but like just squirrel some money away like throughout the project so it's not so painful.
I feel like, Leah, you had some other things that you felt.
I mean, I truly, like, I'm in year, 7, and I just last year got my systems in place for like the bookkeeper that works for me and the CPA that works for me. And like, you know, when you start out, like I was doing purchasing in Excel spreadsheets and QuickBooks and whatever, and like overpaying sales tax because I was so afraid of getting in trouble for not paying enough sales tax. And aligning those people, like I use Studio Designer, that is a thing that works for me. My bookkeeper knows Studio Designer, my CPA knows Studio Designer. I meet with them regularly. They keep me in line. I'm sort of afraid of both of them, but in a way that I like. And so like that for me has just been a tremendous weight lifted off of me because then I can focus, like I do everything they tell me to do, but it's like, I know I'm gonna get an email from them if I don't do it right, and just not having surprises, because I think as you run a business, like we wanted to do this because we're creatives, not because I wanted to like do invoicing. And so it can be really tricky, and sometimes you learn through pretty painful mistakes, but I think getting those systems in place as early as possible, assuming you're going to be wildly successful and grow, and the cash flow in and out is going to keep growing and growing and growing, like setting that up super early is so important, because then you can just sort of like remove that stress from your life.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. It's exactly right. It was the first thing that we did when we went out was like bookkeeper, CPA, and I write the checks to pay them, and I don't even think about what it costs. I'm just like, thank you.
Yeah.
And other things,
know.
move
Yeah.
on.
Do it when you're slow, and then you don't have to think about it when,
When it's
couple
crazy.
projects- Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say I did all the quick. I mean, I obviously had a bookkeeper and a CPA, but like there is something to like that I did do all of the QuickBooks for like the first year or two. That now when I'm just like, oh, really, even probably the person that knows studio designer the least in my studio, but I am like I understand the concept of like you match this to this. Like these are the things that need to happen to get it going. I think it is important like when you're starting to at least understand every aspect of your business.
Yeah, you got to know, but once you make a few painful mistakes,
But
You hire
I
this-
like truly we had like a surprise this week. Like there's no world where like the
I know.
surprises stop.
No, you're
so
right.
like that's
if we can mitigate the stress as best we can.
some of the other things we were talking about. Photography systems, PR. Anyone have?
Like as Julie's front row. Yeah, I mean, I hired a publicist. I waited because again, it's an investment, but I waited until I had like a fair amount of like projects and I was still designing furniture and like I don't currently pay for a publicist, but it really helped me as I was growing, like get my stuff in the right places and I think build important relationships with editors. Like I wouldn't have been able to do that. And actually the way I learned how to do anything was I took a workshop that Jillian taught years ago about like design PR for small studios. So it is invaluable because it's a whole different world and you don't know how to communicate and you don't know what they want to see. So I think if you can afford it and be strategic about the way you do it, like it's incredible. It changes your career for sure.
Yeah, I think I was saying to somebody for us. It was, and we had had maybe some PR early on, but there was a moment when I was like, okay, we're about to finish like a lot of things that I'm really proud of, I'm really happy with. The landscape is weird, it's celebrities on covers, like I don't know how that's gonna go. All I want out of this is for like these new projects to replace what was out there of our previous. Not replace it, but like if someone looks up our work for them to see this, I don't really care how that happens, I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna be like, hold out for this or whatever it is, but like, I just want this work to now be the work that's seen of ours.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, while I worked there and Zeb worked there, you also like had a marketing person, like, or branding or whatever it was, like help you get super intentional about what the firm
I mean,
is.
do you remember? She was amazing. She would sit and be like, what do you want to
Yes.
do in 5 years? And I'd be like, I don't know, what do you mean? Like,
No, she forced that conversation
and
in
it
a way
was
that was
really
cool.
helpful, actually. And it was great. And it is not the type of thing that I think I would naturally do or think was useful, but knowing like, I was like, yeah, sure, I'd like to make more money, but like, that's not like my goal of the next few years. Like I love the projects we have. My goal isn't to do anything substantially different. I was like, so what? I was like, oh, I love this industry. Like the respect of my peers is something that's important to me. And she's like, okay, like that's something like that's something that can then sort of get you somewhere. And then a few years later, we kind of checked in again and I was like, I want an office that like doesn't run without me, but like feels good. People want to work there. It's not sort of just like, I mean, it still is me wandering around distracting people, like, but that like has all the benefits, is a place where people want to spend time and like setting up those systems. And that's hard. Like that took time to get that, but it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
I haven't really dipped into the PR thing yet. I've been very lucky to have been attached to projects that have had an architect with a PR team that has put us where we've been in terms of like press. So I've kind of failed up in that sense. But I've always known that like having watched you wait and then when you have like a wave of projects, bringing somebody on that you want to get out into the world, that's coming down the road. So
Yeah.
it's a good lesson.
The lesson is like, what is it that you want from, like, why do you want it? What is it that you want from it? Figuring it out from there.
I think one thing that we talked about before that is interesting is like being intentional, especially early in your career, about where stuff gets published and that like not all press is good press in terms of like if you're trying to position yourself in the market as this type of designer, or like, I don't know, like I think that was really smart because you were like, no, I want these projects to be in a particular place because that's how I feel. I don't know. I think that's interesting to not just like throw stuff at a wall, but be really intentional about it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Leah, you and I have had a lot of conversations through the years about like not rushing things and being
So hard. So hard.
being patient and like just
Yeah.
doing the work, seeing what happens.
I mean,
Focusing on that. I mean, I think we're so lucky, and everyone here, right? Like we're doing a job we want to do, right? Like even when you talk about hiring, like if you're hiring designers, it's great. They are getting the job they want. Like you're not hiring someone that wishes they were doing something else.
yeah.
And so I think all of the thing is like, well, if you really just love doing the work, focus on doing the work. Everything else can kind of build from that if you're actually focused and you're doing good work. I mean, I would say from the setting up, something that I did not do, and I was telling all of you to do, is focus on the other hire, Ivy, who's here. Because you can hire designers, they're gonna be there, they're gonna have great taste, they're gonna be excited, like, you hire people you trust, but hiring the people that are gonna kind of do the other parts for you, I found difficult, and I think I did it myself for too long until it became a very hard position to hire for. So I would say, as much as it's scary to hire the first person that you're not billing out hourly, it is important to like build with that person, and then that job, as your needs grow, they can grow with it. So do as I say, not as I did.
I mean, we're learning still. We're learning. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, Frances, just this is like on the mentorship thing. I mean, it's so gracious that Frances has made herself available to us. I remember about a year in, out on my own, I asked Frances to get drinks because I had my first clients were doozies, and I was like sort of at my wit's end, and I was like, Frances, like, I'm trying to not curse, but like, how much BS did you put up with in the beginning? And she was like, all of it, like all of it. Like you say yes to everything, you work really hard because you want every client to be really happy with you because then they'll refer you to somebody else and you don't know what comes out of it. And so even if it's not like your favorite taste, like you still need to do the best job you can. And I was like, okay, like when will the work start to look like my work? And she was like, probably like 5 years and with some bright spots in between. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm 1 year in, okay. And like truly I remember clocking it at 5 years and I had these projects published that like really looked like me. And I was like, that sage woman was so right. I mean, also in that same conversation, I was thinking about this morning, on a personal note, I was talking to Frances about my then boyfriend and I was like, I don't know, we like different stuff. And she was like, Leah, don't break up with your boyfriend because he likes different music than you. And we're now like happily married. So thank you, Frances. She's a wise woman. Do we want to talk about the Reath culture and just like the creative culture?
Just watch Met Gala slideshows. Lots of red carpet slideshows in the
While we ate our lunches, please. We were productive.
Although now we're doing crosswords in the kitchen, and that is great.
Is it like a communal like paper one that everybody like takes a minute with? Oh, that's cute.
It's really fun.
I mean, Ashley and I didn't overlap, so I don't know if this was still a practice, but like we would have like all hands design meetings where like you'd block your calendar, you'd turn off your email, it would be all hands on deck, it'd be a really like intense, I mean, amazing, like so fun and so creative. And I think you touched on this earlier, I think Frances was actually open to our input. I feel like sometimes principals, it's a little bit like my way or their highway, and it truly felt collaborative, and that was so valuable. And I think one of the things that I learned so much from working at Reath is that like, obviously Frances is a force. I was working with 3 other designers that were equally like beautifully talented, and you know, there's going to be creative disagreements, and so you have to learn how to articulate sort of the intangible why. Right? Like dimensions and proportions and functionality are important, obviously, but so much of what we do is intuitive, right? Like it's a feeling, and you can't sometimes explain it. And I think being in a room with talented designers, having to like defend my reasoning with words, helped me sort of strengthen that muscle of being able to now like articulate the why with my clients, because as we all know, like we're trying to do things that haven't been done before. So there's not a reference. I don't like photorealistic renders. Like we're trying.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. It's really bad. Clients don't get it. But just, I think that was super helpful working in a really collaborative, creative environment to like strengthen that muscle of like finding words to articulate the why, because like we have to sell our ideas to our clients all the time. So again, thanks, Frances.
Yeah, I think, again, the same thing, being able to just articulate and bend, but also walk through with the clients, because sometimes they just don't understand it. And, even, times where maybe you think it's a blue, or I think, thinking of one of the Los Feliz, like at one point we were talking about, we did a page of like, what if the kitchen's a blue tile? What if it's like this pale green tile? And, sort of showing like, here are reasons, and here's some reference imagery to show how it could look beautiful in this way and also this way. There's not really a right answer, but it's sort of, which one feels right to you, client. And so I feel like being able to, one, just have those conversations behind the scenes with you has been super helpful, but then also just in front of the client, being able to sort of walk them through it, guide them through the process too.
I'm actually remembering as you're saying that, one of the things that I hadn't thought about until I hired the first person working for me was how important it is to actually have those conversations internally in the office before you talk to your client, because then I'd be like, oh yeah, wait, maybe it should be this way. And it's like very nice to have that collaboration before. And I would also say in terms of hiring, at least for the design we're trying to do at Reath, we don't want it to all look one way. So actually having a lot of designers with varied tastes, and we like all the things. Like any designer doesn't necessarily, I think, just want to work for what they would do for themselves and do that again and again. But having different people, like even now we were cleaning out our fabric library, and I could see the sections that grew from different employees through the years. I'm like, oh, Ashley, this is why we have all of these beautiful florals here, and this drawer is like a little full. Or just, someone who might like some other color, and it's there. And it's like, as a designer, as my library grows, like that's such a great tool that thanks to having all these different people work for me, is like I'm still taking advantage of. So
it's definitely one of the things that I miss about being in a bigger office or team, is having Frances always encouraged us to if you see samples that you like in a magazine somewhere, just order them and get them to the office. And I feel like we miss that. Everything, I'm always I need a different, I'll stop at the PDC East at Frances's. But yeah, having that diversity of what people see and catches their eyes, and have it show up in the office is was a really great thing. And those be the beginning of projects when everything is coming out of the drawers, and it's kind of you're playing and seeing what sticks, and establishing color stories or space planning was such a fun time in a project, because there were those midway mini presentations that you would give, and you kind of talk us through where you were at with it or what felt like it was missing. Just that was such an informative process to experience. And I feel like I do that, but I work remotely a lot, and I don't have a team in front of me to kind of talk those things through. And I do miss that, because I feel like you get so much out of having somebody to listen, and even if it just helps you figure out how you want to approach navigating an entire house worth of design. I find in our presentations I have to make myself slow down, because there's so much information to get through. And Frances was always very good about kind of pacing herself through those, and I'm working towards being a little more a little more breath work in the presentation.
All right. I think maybe we'll open up to questions if anyone.
Hi, this question's for Zeb, actually. As someone else who doesn't have a formal education in design and has found themselves in this field and really coming into my own and loving it, how did you in the early days overcome like a sense of imposter syndrome or feeling like I don't have all of the, and not to say that you might not still have it. I know
We all have it. Yeah.
my boss has that all the time, and she also doesn't have a formal education, which is why I work with her. But I'm finding myself sometimes on projects or talking to clients and feeling like, oh, I don't have the right language yet to explain myself or to talk about what I'm looking at. And yeah.
You know, when I was at Reath, obviously, like the big presentations, like Francis kind of delivered those to the clients, and then there would be like smaller things or site visits where I would kind of have those conversations with whoever the client was. And I feel like that was one of the things I was most scared of going out on my own, is being that person that is like driving the story of the presentation, or of the presentation to the client, and relaying that information and feeling like, but well, what's that going to feel like? And you just have to get out there and start doing it. And I feel like it comes more naturally with time, and now it feels really easy. I used to like get so nervous in the car before a presentation, and now I feel like I don't even think about it. I still feel like I have imposter syndrome.
Everybody
sometimes, but I think that you just deal with it, and then one day you're like, oh, I guess I'm not. But it does just take time and putting yourself out there, and that's the best I've got.
Thank you guys so much. So my question, in seeing, like from my vantage point as a maker who's been in the industry for a long time here, like I've seen the crops of babies come up through different firms, and I love seeing that, right? Is that at all related, like for Francis and for, your children? Was there ever a point where you thought about the size of your firm and whether growing past that point would force you to be more in a management sort of administrative role, almost in like, corralling what's happening in the office? Like, is there a pivot point that you can see? And did you have to make a conscious choice of like, this is the size of firm that I want so that I can be very intimately involved in what I'm doing? And is that something on your minds as well as you grow your firms?
Great question.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a mix of like overthinking and also not planning. This is a little bit of a twist to the answer of your question, but I really like what I'm doing. I like design. I like all the parts of it. So I think I'm conscious of not wanting to sort of take on too many things that take me away from that. I think there definitely was a moment when you get to a certain point when you're like, oh, just the running of the business is actually now stopping me from doing this. So whether it's like, okay, now you have to talk to someone about 401k or healthcare or all, like when those things that like, even if you could do them and it's not that taxing, it actually just is time consuming. And the fact is like that actually happens with like a pretty small firm. So I think you do need to hire, like that goes back to what I was saying, is like you do need to hire the support and the people who also that like you can talk to about all of the things and what kind of firm you want. Yeah, I think I just would never want something giant because I like the ins and outs. Like I like knowing what's happening. I like looking at shop drawings. Like I like being on site, even though as the firm has grown, I certainly don't do all of the things.
We at a point had 2 employees, and it's me and my design partner, and I marveled at you, Francis, once we started having people working for us, and just like what that adds to your plate. And I feel like I am excited about the prospect of having more. I don't know that I could ever go as big as you are right now because
Which is not that big.
It's not that big. No, it's not. But it's a lot. It's a lot to navigate and manage bodies and people, and maybe that's one of those things where, you know, similar to what I said to you, is like you just like start doing it, and as like the need presents itself to have another person, you just say yes and figure it out. But hiring is intimidating, and in my mind, like the days, like when I was at Reath, I think there was 4 of us, and that felt like aspirational to me. I don't know that maybe one day I'll feel different and more will be correct, but right now, like that feels like 2 to 3 feels like a nice number I feel comfortable with for sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine getting too large. Like I've seen different offices, and one of them I think was like 50, but like different departments and like, you know, accounting and you know, different lines. So it made sense. But even the design team itself was like a dozen people, which still you're just, yeah, like it's hard to split your time between design and then also some of the other branches too, other arms. But I was at dinner last night talking to other designers, asking them like, how many people are in your team? And I think it sounds like there's like this 4 to 7 sort of sweet spot that I'm sort of keeping in mind. I do, you know, Frances had such a lovely studio, and so I would like to replicate that and have, you know, offer the benefits and all the things, but still just, you know, somewhere where people feel comfortable and want to be too. So.
I will say that's one thing that I really miss about being there is having coworkers, and like we all had such a nice fun dynamic, and like, you know, a day after the Oscars or the Met Gala, us standing in front of a computer screen for an hour and nitpicking and talking is something that I really miss. And so obviously, like, you have to have more people to do that. And and you are everybody's in everybody's business, and so I miss that. So yes, I guess to retract that statement, I would like to have more people because
Purely for
I need friends.
Purely to look at the staff. Yeah, Frances is still mentoring me, like, as we speak, about, like, I don't have enough help and I'm scared. And she's like, okay, if you wait too long, it's going to be harder. And literally this morning, I'm like, she's right again. She's right again. So, but I think to your, like, she had made a really good point to me that she's like, is it preventing you from taking on work you're excited about, or like doing the best work you can do? And I do feel right now like I'm spread so thin that I feel like guilty because I want to make sure I'm like giving each project enough attention. So I think for me, like as a very risk averse person, it's going to be like a slow tiptoe to growth, but like, yeah, like as the work comes. But I think again, like to everybody's point, I want to keep it small because like I want to design, I don't want to manage people all day.
We have one more question over.
Hi, I'm Sean. I guess just going back to saying, you know, you're going through your supply closet and you're like, you see each and every one, right? And I think collectively as all of us, you know, what prevents you or us from actually going to a friend's supply closet to rummaging through, right? Or like, is it time, right? Or what prevents us from all getting together to go look at the Met Gala? You know?
You guys can all come over and go through our samples.
I will take that invite.
I guess, yeah, probably time.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, yeah.
No, it's time. I mean, we had like a little Zoom before that, or a week ago. And like, you know, calling back to Frances talking about all the samples that I'd ordered, she could see the library behind me. And even then, like I've been talking about since last year, trying to go through and do the same kind of purge. But you also know what you're looking for, like when you're
Yeah.
going through it. But you're also just like, well, why do I still have this?
The library review is a daunting
It's
task.
not.
Yeah.
It's been on the list for years.
And I've been wanting to do just like been a week.
Yeah.
Still haven't done that. So
But it is fun to like visit. Like I've been to Francis's studio and just like mouth a jar, just like looking at stuff. Like it's still so fun just to see, even if you look at your own stuff all the time. Like it is very inspiring to go see what other people are doing in the same like collaborative thing. Like, oh yeah, people have different ideas, and I wouldn't have thought of that, and that's so cool. And we all miss working at Reath, basically.
I remember, I don't know, this was maybe a couple years ago, Leah came by our office and I was complaining about like one of our velvet drawers having too many shades of a certain color. And Leah's like, Zeb, you don't need that many. You need to get rid of some of these. And a couple of weeks ago, we were having to kind of redo part of our office, and there was our go backs were absolutely exploding. And I just threw away 3 drawers of fabrics, and I was like, I mean, I recycled them. I didn't throw them away. But I was like, we've got to get some of this out of here, and I can just tell at a glance I don't need anything in there. And it was a fun purge, and now it feels like there's a little space to breathe in there. But to go through it was just such a daunting task, and I was like, if I can't think of what's in there off the top of my head, I don't need it, and I'll go find it again.
Well, you said if you haven't used it in like 3 years or something. I don't know. You said something, and I was like, "That's a good rule of thumb." I need like a guideline.
I said if you think you might be like, oh, I really like this, but I'm never gonna like it more than something else that's here.
Francis,
Well, I think we have to wrap up. But
I take it back. One more question.
Oh, okay.
All right, I gotta make this good. No, so a couple of themes that I heard that I thought are super interesting is this idea of number of people at the firm, right? So keeping it sort of small, relatively small, intimate, so that you can kind of create this culture. I hate to use the word AI or the acronym AI, but as you think about each of your firms today and what those could look like 5 years from today, what are you thinking in terms of like investment in AI and technology? What does that mean for the number of bodies in your firm? And ultimately, how do you infuse that in an organic way where you can kind of keep what's precious and what each of you love doing, what I love doing, sort of with the realities of the new world?
I'm probably the least equipped person to answer this question. I don't know. I look forward to maybe the rendering capabilities. I think, going back to one of the things that Zeb said about working for me, like, we really try to draw our references from a really wide variety of places. So I'm always like, get off Pinterest. Like, it's a great tool for saving images, but like, let's not do our initial research there. And so I think, AI is pulling from things that already exist. So if you're trying to create something new, then hopefully you're sort of like safe from that in a way. But I think there's also like, technology is great. It's time saving. Like, I am not that computer savvy. I look forward to being able to make beautiful renderings, but I'm still gonna get my ideas from other places. I don't know if that's an answer.
I also feel like the type of clients that seek out an interior designer, like a professional, like they want something really unique. So I actually think that more and more, like the hand sketches or like a watercolored collage, like I think those deliverables are going to be even more valued just because it isn't just an AI render. Like I hate the looks of AI renders. I think they look so plastic and weird. Like I think clients are going to crave more handmade. I think those services are going to be even more highly valued because everything is moving in that way.
yeah.
Don't you think? It's like no one wants a little AI render.
No, if
you can get a watercolor, like that's so exciting and cool.
Whenever we talk to a prospective client, if their expectation, like that's always the conversation, is like, well, do you do like 3D like rendering models? And I was like, if it's like a kitchen and you need to see how the cabinetry lays out, we'll do a 3D black and white model for you to kind of get a sense of like what that space feels like. But we don't do 3D renderings in everything is two-dimensional and it's like illustrative, and we ask you to use your imagination, and if people don't, if they take an issue with it, it's like, you're probably just not the right fit for
Right.
us, and I'm fine with that. I'm not in a place to say no to work, but I don't want to do it.
Here, here. Here.
Thank you guys so.